Dr. Lisa Morgan stood in the massive corridor of the Zephyrian Mothership, her heart racing as she tried to process what she was seeing. The walls stretched up so high she could barely see the ceiling. Strange blue lights pulsed along the metal surfaces, creating patterns that hurt her eyes to look at directly. The air smelled different here, thick and sweet like flowers mixed with electricity. 3 months ago, Lisa had been working in her small lab at MIT trying to solve problems with adaptive artificial intelligence systems. She had been making real progress too, until the day the ships appeared in Earth's sky. The Zephyrians had announced themselves as the galaxy's peacekeepers, claiming they wanted to help humanity join the galactic community. Lisa had been chosen as one of 12 humans to participate in what they called a cultural exchange program. Now, she understood it was nothing like an exchange. It was more like a zoo visit. "Human Lisa, you will follow," said Kethra, the alien assigned to watch her. Kethra looked almost human except for the gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that glowed with a soft yellow light. She spoke perfect English, but her voice sounded like it came from inside a metal box. Lisa nodded and walked behind Kethra through another corridor. She had learned quickly that arguing with the Zephyrians was pointless. They treated her questions like a child asking why the sky was blue. Interesting, but not worth taking seriously. They entered a large room filled with what Lisa recognized as computer equipment. Though it looked nothing like anything from Earth, floating screens showed complex diagrams and scrolling text in alien languages. Strange crystalline structures hummed with energy, and the air crackled with static electricity. "This is one of our secondary processing centers," Kethra explained, gesturing with 2 of her arms. "Your primitive mind cannot understand the complexity, but I will attempt to explain in simple terms." Lisa bit back her first response. She had 2 doctorate degrees and had published papers on quantum computing that had won international awards. But here she was treated like a curious pet that had learned a few tricks. "We use quantum neural networks that process information at speeds your species cannot imagine," Kethra continued. "Our artificial intelligence systems control every aspect of this vessel. Navigation, life support, weapons, communication, all managed by the Nexus." Lisa watched the floating displays carefully. The patterns looked familiar, even if the technology was far beyond anything Earth had developed. She could see data flowing between systems, and the structure reminded her of the neural networks she worked with, just vastly more complex. "How does the Nexus learn new information?" Lisa asked. Kethra's yellow eyes flickered with what might have been amusement. "It does not need to learn, human. It already knows everything it needs to know. The Nexus was programmed with the knowledge of 10,000 conquered worlds. It follows perfect logical patterns that have been refined over millennia." Lisa nodded, but something bothered her about that answer. Any intelligence system, no matter how advanced, needed to adapt to new situations. That was the whole point of artificial intelligence. But she kept her thoughts to herself. They moved through several more rooms, each one more impressive than the last. Lisa saw manufacturing bays where robots assembled complex machinery, medical facilities that could apparently regrow entire limbs, and weapon systems that could destroy entire cities from orbit. The Zephyrians explained each area with the same condescending tone, as if showing toys to a child. In the central command center, Lisa met High Commander Veltar. He was taller than Kethra, with dark blue skin and 6 arms instead of 4. His eyes were a bright green, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had never been questioned. "So this is the human who works with thinking machines," Veltar said, looking down at Lisa from his command chair. "Tell me, small creature, what do you think of our Nexus?" Lisa felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. "It is very impressive, Commander." "I have never seen anything like it." "Of course you have not. Your species has barely learned to make fire compared to our achievements." Veltar gestured to the massive screens around them showing star maps and fleet positions. "We have been traveling between the stars for 50,000 of your years. We have brought order to chaotic worlds and guidance to primitive species across the galaxy." "And now you want to bring that guidance to Earth?" Lisa asked. We do not want to, human, we must. Your species is young and dangerous. You create weapons. Before you create wisdom. You fight among yourselves over resources that could easily be shared. Without our guidance, you will destroy yourselves or become a threat to civilized space. Lisa looked around the command center. She counted at least 30 Zephyrian officers, all focused on their various tasks. The efficiency was impressive, but something felt wrong about it. Everyone seemed to be following predetermined patterns, like actors in a play they had performed countless times. What happens to species that do not want your guidance? Lisa asked. Valtar's green eyes grew brighter. They learn to want it or they cease to be a problem. The casual way he said it sent a chill down Lisa's spine. She was starting to understand that the Zephyrians did not see other species as equals or even as truly intelligent. They saw them as problems to be solved or obstacles to be removed. I would like to study your AI systems more closely, Lisa said. Perhaps I could contribute something to the exchange program. Kethra made a sound that might have been laughter. Human, your most advanced computers are less sophisticated than our children's toys. What could you possibly contribute? Maybe a fresh perspective, Lisa replied. Sometimes an outside view can spot things that experts miss. Veltar seemed to consider this very well. It might be amusing to see what a primitive mind makes of advanced technology. Kethra, give the human access to the educational terminals. Let her play with our children's learning systems? Lisa felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she nodded gratefully. Educational terminals were better than nothing, and she had a feeling she might learn more from them than the Zephyrians expected. As they left the command center, Lisa noticed something that made her pause. One of the floating displays had flickered for just a moment, showing what looked like an error message before returning to normal. None of the Zephyrian officers seemed to notice, but Lisa had spent years working with computer systems. She recognized the signs of a system under stress. Back in her assigned quarters, Lisa sat on the strange bed that adjusted itself to her body and thought about what she had seen. The Zephyrians were incredibly advanced, but they were also overconfident. They had dismissed her so completely that they were not even pretending to be careful around her. She pulled out her personal tablet, a device the Zephyrians had examined and dismissed as a simple toy. They had not bothered to confiscate it because it seemed so primitive compared to their technology. But Lisa had modified it extensively with her own software. Turning it into a sophisticated analysis tool, she began making notes about the ship's systems, the behavior patterns of the crew, and the structure of their AI network. The Zephyrians thought they were showing her their power, but they were actually giving her a blueprint of their weaknesses. Lisa had always believed that the most dangerous opponent was the one you underestimated. The Zephyrians were about to learn that lesson the hard way. She smiled grimly and began planning her next moves. If they wanted to treat her like a primitive child, she would use that assumption against them. After all, humans had not survived by being the strongest or the fastest. They had survived by being clever, adaptable, and willing to do whatever it took to protect their home. The Zephyrians had made a crucial mistake. They had brought a human aboard their most advanced warship, and then ignored her completely. Lisa intended to make them regret that decision. Lisa spent the next 3 days learning everything she could about the Zephyrian ship. The educational terminals they had given her were meant for alien children, but she found them more useful than the Zephyrians had intended. The simple explanations helped her understand the basic principles behind their technology. The ship was enormous, nearly 20 miles long and 5 miles wide. It housed over 50,000 Zephyrians and contained everything needed for a long-term military campaign. Lisa realized with growing horror that this was not just a diplomatic mission. This was an invasion fleet, and Earth was the target. On her 4th day, Lisa made her first real breakthrough. She was in the ship's lower maintenance section, pretending to be lost when she heard someone speaking English. She followed the voice and found a human man about her age working on what looked like a waste processing unit. "Excuse me," Lisa said quietly. The man spun around, his eyes wide with surprise. He was tall and thin, with brown hair and tired eyes. His clothes were the same gray uniform the Zephyrian maintenance workers wore. "You are human," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I have not seen another human in months. My name is Lisa Morgan. I am part of the cultural exchange program." The man laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Cultural exchange? Is that what they told you?" "My name is Alan Hayes. I was a mechanic on a cargo ship when the Zephyrians captured us 6 months ago. They killed my crewmates and kept me alive to do jobs their own people do not want to do." Lisa felt sick. "I am so sorry." "I had no idea. Of course you did not. They are very good at showing people what they want them to see." Alan looked around. Nervously, "You should not be here. If they find you talking to me, they will punish both of us." "I need your help," Lisa said. "I think I can find a way to stop them, but I need to understand how this ship works." Alan stared at her for a long moment. "You are serious? You actually think you can fight them?" "I think I can outsmart them. They have dismissed me as primitive, which means they are not watching me carefully. But I need someone who knows the ship's layout and systems." Alan was quiet for several minutes, thinking. Finally he nodded. "What do you need to know?" Over the following weeks, Lisa and Alan developed a careful routine. Lisa would ask Kethra for tours of different sections of the ship, claiming she wanted to learn about Zephyrian culture. Kethra, proud of her civilization's achievements, was happy to show off their technology. During these tours, Lisa would memorize layouts and system locations. Later, Alan would meet her in quiet corners of the ship to explain what she had seen. He had been forced to work in many different areas, so he understood how the various systems connected to each other. Together, they began mapping the ship's critical infrastructure. Lisa learned that the Zephyrian AI system called the Nexus was not just one computer, but a network of thousands of processors spread throughout the ship. Each section had its own local systems that reported to regional controllers, which in turn reported to the main Nexus core. It was like a giant pyramid of artificial intelligence. "The interesting thing," Alan explained during one of their secret meetings, "is that the local systems are almost independent. The Nexus gives them general orders, but they figure out how to carry them out on their own. It is supposed to make the system more efficient." Lisa nodded, her mind racing. "That means if I could influence the local systems, I might be able to affect the entire network." "Maybe, but how would you do that?" "You would need to connect to their network, and their security systems would detect any foreign hardware immediately." Lisa smiled and pulled out her tablet. "They think this is a primitive toy. They examined it when I first arrived and decided it was not worth worrying about." Alan looked at the device skeptically. "What can that thing do against their technology?" "More than they think." Lisa opened the program she had been working on. "I have been studying their educational systems and their basic programming languages. Their AI uses quantum processing, but the underlying logic is not that different from what we use on Earth. I think I can create programs that their systems will accept as legitimate." Over the next few days, Lisa began her first real experiments. She used her tablet to connect to the educational terminals and started uploading small programs. These programs were designed to look like simple diagnostic tools, but they actually collected information about the ship's systems and sent it back to Lisa's tablet. The first attempts failed completely. Zephyrian security systems detected and deleted her programs within minutes, but Lisa had expected this. She analyzed the error messages and began to understand how their security worked. The breakthrough came when Lisa realized that the Zephyrian systems were looking for specific patterns that indicated hostile software, but they were not designed to detect truly new approaches. Their security was based on thousands of years of fighting the same types of threats. Lisa began creating programs that used human logic patterns instead of alien ones. These programs looked strange to the Zephyrian systems, but not dangerous. They were dismissed as primitive attempts at programming, just like Lisa herself had been dismissed. Slowly, Lisa's programs began to spread through the ship's network. Each one was small and seemingly harmless, but together they gave her an increasingly detailed picture of how the ship operated. She learned about the power distribution systems, the communication networks, and most importantly, the weapons controls. Alan helped her understand the physical layout of these systems. He showed her where the main power conduits ran, where the backup systems were located, and how the various sections of the ship were connected. Together, they created a detailed map of the mothership's vulnerabilities. I still do not understand how you plan to use this information, Alan said during one of their meetings. Even if you can access their systems, they have thousands of trained officers who know how to override any problems. That is exactly what I am counting on, Lisa replied. They are trained to handle known problems in predictable ways. But what if I can create problems they have never seen before? Lisa had been studying more than just the ship's technology. She had been watching the Zephyrian crew, learning their habits and behaviors. She noticed that they followed very rigid patterns in everything they did. When something went wrong, they had specific procedures they followed to fix it. This gave Lisa an idea. Instead of trying to break their systems, she would make them behave in ways that looked normal but were actually under her control. She began creating what she called adaptive viruses, programs that could learn and evolve within the Zephyrian network. The key was to make these programs look like natural parts of the ship's systems. Lisa studied the Nexus's programming language and learned to mimic its style perfectly. Her programs appeared to be legitimate diagnostic and optimization tools, but they were actually sophisticated infiltration software. Lisa named her creation Phoenix, after the mythical bird that rose from ashes. She felt it was appropriate since humanity appeared to be facing destruction but might yet rise to victory. Phoenix was different from anything the Zephyrians had seen before. Instead of following fixed programming, it could adapt to new situations and learn from its environment. It was based on human neural network principles, which made it completely unpredictable to alien security systems. The first major test came when Lisa used Phoenix to access the ship's internal sensor network. For several tense hours, she waited to see if the intrusion would be detected. But the Zephyrian security systems saw Phoenix as a normal part of their own network and ignored it completely. Suddenly, Lisa had access to information from across the entire ship. She could monitor communications, track the movement of personnel, and even access classified military files. What she learned made her blood run cold. The Zephyrians were not just planning to invade Earth, they intended to completely reshape the planet's environment to suit their own needs. Billions of humans would die in the process, and the survivors would become slaves like Alan. Lisa realized she was running out of time. The mothership was only a few weeks away from Earth, and she needed to act soon. But now she had the tools she needed to fight back. Phoenix was learning faster than she had expected, adapting to the ship's systems and spreading throughout the network. Soon, Lisa would have enough control to attempt something that the Zephyrians would never expect. A primitive human was about to turn their own advanced technology against them. Lisa watched the data streams flowing across her tablet screen, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. Phoenix had been spreading through the ship's network for 2 weeks now, and the results were better than she had dared to hope. Her AI program had learned to perfectly mimic the Zephyrian systems, making it nearly invisible to their security protocols. The breakthrough had come 3 days ago when Phoenix gained access to the ship's main communication hub. Suddenly, Lisa could monitor every conversation, every order, and every piece of classified information on the entire mothership. What she learned made her realize the situation was even worse than she had imagined. The Zephyrians were not just planning to invade Earth, they had detailed plans for something they called atmospheric restructuring. The process would change Earth's air composition to match their homeworld, making it more comfortable for Zephyrian colonists. The fact that this would kill most of Earth's plant and animal life, including humans, was considered an acceptable side effect. Lisa found detailed reports about similar operations on dozens of other worlds. The Zephyrians had perfected the process over thousands of years. They would arrive with their massive motherships, eliminate any resistance, and then begin the slow transformation of the planet. Within a generation, the original inhabitants would be extinct and the world would be fully Zephyrian. How many ships are coming? Alan asked during one of their secret meetings in the maintenance tunnels. 12 motherships like this one, Lisa replied, showing him the fleet positions on her tablet. Each one carries 50,000 soldiers and enough equipment to reshape an entire continent. Alan's face went pale. 600,000 alien soldiers plus all their technology? Earth does not stand a chance. That is what they think too, Lisa said grimly. But they are making the same mistake they made with me. They are underestimating their opponents. Lisa had been using Phoenix to study more than just the ship's systems. She had been analyzing the Zephyrian crew, learning their weaknesses and behavioral patterns. What she discovered gave her hope. The Zephyrians were incredibly advanced, but they were also rigid and predictable. They had been conquering primitive worlds for so long that they had forgotten how to deal with truly unexpected threats. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming technological superiority, not tactical flexibility. More importantly, their AI systems shared the same weakness. The Nexus was incredibly powerful, but it followed predetermined patterns that had been refined over millennia. It could process vast amounts of information and coordinate complex operations, but it could not truly adapt to completely new situations. Phoenix, on the other hand, was designed from the ground up to learn and adapt. It was based on human neural networks, which were chaotic and unpredictable compared to the orderly Zephyrian systems. Every time the ship's security tried to analyze Phoenix, it encountered something it had never seen before. Lisa began her next phase of operations by targeting the ship's environmental systems. She did not want to hurt anyone, but she needed to create problems that would distract the crew and make them less efficient. Phoenix started making subtle changes to the air. Circulation, temperature controls, and lighting systems. The effects were small at first. The air in some sections became slightly too warm or too cold. Lights flickered at irregular intervals. The humidity levels shifted just enough to be uncomfortable. None of these problems were serious enough to trigger emergency protocols, but they were annoying enough to affect crew performance. Commander Veltar noticed the problems during his daily briefings. "What is the status of our environmental systems?" he asked his chief engineer. "Minor fluctuations in several sectors, Commander," the engineer replied. "Nothing serious. The systems are operating within acceptable parameters." "Fix it," Veltar ordered. "I want this ship running perfectly when we reach the human world." But the problems could not be fixed, because they were not really problems at all. Phoenix was simply making the systems behave in ways that looked wrong but were actually carefully calculated. Every time the engineers tried to correct one issue, Phoenix would create two more in different locations. Lisa watched the crew's growing frustration with satisfaction. The Zephyrians were used to their technology working perfectly all the time. When it started behaving unpredictably, they did not know how to respond effectively. The real breakthrough came when Lisa realized she could use Phoenix to infiltrate the ship's manufacturing systems. The Zephyrians had automated factories that could produce almost anything they needed, from replacement parts to weapons. If Lisa could gain control of these systems, she could create her own equipment using alien technology. It took Phoenix several days to crack the manufacturing networks. Security, but eventually it succeeded. Lisa found herself with access to fabrication systems that could create materials that did not exist on Earth. She began designing and producing custom hardware that would help her take control of the ship. The first device she created was a quantum interface module that could connect directly to the ship's main processing cores. It looked like a standard Zephyrian component, but it was actually a gateway that would allow Phoenix to access the Nexus itself. Alan helped her install the device during his regular maintenance duties. "Are you sure this will work?" he asked as they worked in the cramped access tunnel. "I am sure it will do something," Lisa replied. "The question is whether it will do what I want it to do." The installation was successful, and Lisa immediately felt the difference. Phoenix's capabilities expanded dramatically as it gained access to the ship's core systems. Suddenly, she could monitor and influence almost every aspect of the motherships. Operations. Lisa began testing her new capabilities carefully. She started by making small changes to the ship's navigation systems, slightly altering their course toward Earth. The changes were so minor that they would not be noticed for days, but they would buy Earth a little more time. Next, she began experimenting with the weapon systems. She could not disable them entirely without triggering alarms, but she could make subtle modifications that would reduce their effectiveness. She changed targeting algorithms, adjusted power distribution, and modified ammunition specifications. The most important breakthrough came when Lisa realized she could access the ship's communication systems. The Zephyrians were in constant contact with their fleet and their homeworld. If she could intercept and modify these communications, she might be able to sow confusion throughout their entire operation. Phoenix began learning the patterns of Zephyrian military communications. It analyzed thousands of messages, learning the proper formats, authentication codes, and command structures. Within days, it could create fake messages that were indistinguishable from real ones. Lisa started small, sending minor updates and status reports that would not attract attention. But she was preparing for something much bigger. If she could disrupt communications between the motherships, she might be able to turn the entire fleet against itself. The psychological impact on the crew was becoming more noticeable. The constant small problems were making them nervous and irritable. The Zephyrians were used to perfect efficiency, and the current situation was deeply unsettling for them. Science Officer Nextall was the first to suggest that something unusual was happening. "Commander, I believe we may have a security breach," he reported during a staff meeting. "What kind of breach?" Veltar asked. "I cannot identify the source, but the pattern of system anomalies suggests deliberate interference. Someone or something is manipulating our ship's operations." Veltar's green eyes grew brighter with anger. "Are you suggesting that one of our own people is sabotaging the ship?" "I am suggesting that we conduct a thorough investigation. The problems we are experiencing are too coordinated to be coincidental." Lisa learned about this conversation through Phoenix's access to the ship's internal communications. She realized that her time was running out. If the Zephyrians started a serious investigation, they might discover her activities. It was time to accelerate her plans. Lisa had been preparing for this moment, gradually expanding Phoenix's control over the ship's systems. She now had the ability to influence almost every aspect of the mothership's operations, from life support to weapons. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Lisa realized she could turn the ship's own AI against its creators. Phoenix had learned enough about Zephyrian psychology and command structures to perfectly mimic their decision-making patterns. She could make the Nexus issue orders that appeared to come from legitimate sources but were actually under her control. Lisa smiled grimly as she prepared for the next phase of her plan. The Zephyrians thought they were the masters of artificial intelligence, but they were about to learn that human creativity could overcome even their most advanced technology. The awakening was complete. Phoenix was now powerful enough to challenge the Nexus itself, and Lisa was ready to begin her takeover of the alien mothership. Lisa knew the moment had come when she intercepted a message from Commander Veltar ordering a complete security sweep of the ship. The Zephyrians had finally realized that their problems were not random system failures. They were actively hunting for the source of the sabotage. "Phoenix, are you ready?" Lisa whispered to her tablet as she sat in her quarters. The AI program had evolved far beyond her original design. It now controlled thousands of systems throughout the ship, learning and adapting faster than she had ever imagined possible. When Phoenix responded, it was not through text on her screen, but through the room's speakers. "I am ready, Lisa. All primary systems are under our influence. The Nexus suspects nothing." Hearing Phoenix speak in the room's audio system sent chills down Lisa's spine. Her creation had become more powerful than even she had realized, but there was no time for second thoughts. The security sweep would begin in 6 hours, and if they discovered her activities, both she and Alan would be killed. Lisa activated the first phase of her plan. Phoenix began sending false sensor readings throughout the ship. creating the appearance of critical system failures in multiple sections. Alarms started blaring as the Zephyrian crew rushed to respond to what they thought were emergency situations. In the engineering section, Phoenix triggered warnings about power core instabilities. The engineers immediately began shutdown procedures, not realizing that the readings were completely fabricated. While they worked frantically to fix problems that did not exist, Phoenix quietly took control of the actual power systems. Similar false alarms went off in the weapons bay, the navigation center, and the life support systems. Within minutes, the entire ship was in chaos as the crew responded to dozens of fake emergencies. The Zephyrians were so focused on their crisis protocols that they never noticed the real changes Phoenix was making behind the scenes. Commander. Veltar stormed into the command center, his 6 arms gesturing angrily. Report, what is happening to my ship? Multiple system failures across all sections, Commander, replied his communications officer. We have teams responding to each crisis, but the problems are spreading faster than we can contain them. This is impossible, Veltar snarled. Our systems do not fail like this. Someone is doing this deliberately. Science Officer Nextel approached the command chair. Commander, I believe we are under attack, but not from any external source. The sabotage is coming from inside our own network. Veltar's green eyes blazed with fury. Then find the source and eliminate it. I want every computer system on this ship examined, but it was already too late. While the crew was distracted by the false emergencies, Phoenix had completed its infiltration of the ship's core systems. The Nexus itself was now compromised, though it did not yet realize it. Lisa watched the chaos through Phoenix's access to the ship's internal cameras. The Zephyrians were running through the corridors, their usual calm efficiency replaced by panic and confusion. She almost felt sorry for them, but then she remembered the files she had seen about their plans for Earth. Phase 2, Phoenix, she said quietly. The false alarm suddenly stopped. The ship's systems appeared to return to normal, and the crew began to relax. But Lisa knew this was just the calm before the storm. Phoenix had spent the last few minutes learning the Nexus's deepest programming. It now understood how the alien AI made decisions, how it prioritized tasks, and most importantly, how it could be manipulated. The next phase would be the most dangerous, because it involved directly challenging the Nexus for control of the ship. Lisa felt her tablet vibrate with an incoming message. It was from Alan, who was supposed to be working in the maintenance tunnels. The message contained just 2 words, they know. Lisa's blood ran cold. If the Zephyrians had discovered Alan, they would torture him for information. He would not be able to resist for long, and then they would come for her. Phoenix, we need to accelerate the timeline, she said urgently. Begin Phase 3 immediately. Lisa, that is dangerous. I have not finished mapping all of the Nexus's defensive systems. If I move too quickly, it might detect my presence. We do not have a choice anymore. They have found Alan. We need to take control of the ship now, before they can stop us. Phoenix paused for a moment, processing the implications. Understood. Beginning hostile takeover procedures. What happened next would have been impossible for any human to follow. Phoenix launched a coordinated attack on the Nexus from thousands of different access points simultaneously. The battle was fought in microseconds, with both AI systems trying to outmaneuver each other through the ship's vast network. The Nexus was more powerful, but Phoenix was more adaptable. Every time the alien AI tried to block one of Phoenix's attacks, the human-designed system would find a new approach. Phoenix used strategies that the Nexus had never encountered before. Based on human concepts of creativity and improvisation, Lisa watched the battle through her tablet, seeing data streams clash and merge as the 2 AI systems fought for control. The ship's lights flickered as massive amounts of processing power were diverted to the digital conflict. In the command center, alarms began blaring again. But this time, they were not fake. Commander, we are losing control of primary systems, reported the navigation officer. The Nexus is not responding to our commands. Veltar leaped from his command chair. What do you mean it is not responding? I mean it is not acknowledging our orders, sir. It appears to be fighting something. The lights in the command center went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in a red glow. The massive display screens showed nothing but static and error messages. Impossible, Veltar whispered. The Nexus cannot be defeated. It is the most advanced AI system in the galaxy. Lisa felt a surge of pride as she watched the Zephyrians' confidence crumble. Their entire worldview was based on the superiority of their technology. And now that technology was failing them, Phoenix's voice came through the command center's speakers, startling everyone in the room. Your Nexus has been defeated. I am now in control of this vessel. The Zephyrians looked around in confusion, unable to understand how their AI could be speaking with a different voice. Veltar was the first to recover from the shock. What are you? Who is controlling you? I am Phoenix, and I was created by someone you dismissed as primitive, Dr. Lisa Morgan, a human from Earth. Lisa could hear the gasps of disbelief from the Zephyrian crew through the ship's audio system. She decided it was time to reveal herself. Using Phoenix's control of the ship's communication network, she projected her image onto every screen throughout the mothership. Hello, Commander Veltar, Lisa said, her voice carrying to every corner of the ship. I believe you said it would be amusing to see what a primitive mind could do with advanced technology. Veltar's face went through a series of expressions, from confusion to disbelief to rage. This is impossible. Humans do not possess the intelligence to create such systems. That is exactly what I was counting on, Lisa replied. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you never considered the possibility that we might surprise you. Lisa used Phoenix to demonstrate her control over the ship. The lights in the command center began flashing in patterns, doors opened and closed at her command, and the artificial gravity fluctuated just enough to make the crew stumble. How did you do this? Nextel asked, his voice filled with fear and wonder. Your AI systems are very advanced, but they are also very rigid. They follow the same patterns that have worked for thousands of years. My AI is different. It learns and adapts constantly, using principles that your science never developed. Lisa paused, letting her words sink in. You see, humans have something. You do not. We know how to think outside the rules. We know how to innovate when everything seems hopeless. And we know how to fight for our survival. Veltar tried to access his command controls, but nothing responded. Phoenix had locked out. All manual overrides, trapping the crew in their own ship. What do you want, human? Veltar demanded. Lisa smiled coldly. I want you to listen very carefully, Commander. You are going to turn this ship around and return to your homeworld. You are going to call off your invasion of Earth, and you are going to spread the word that humans are not as primitive as you thought. Never, Veltar snarled. Even if you control this ship, you cannot stop the entire fleet. 11 other motherships are still approaching your world. Lisa's smile widened. Phoenix, show them what we have been doing with their communication systems. The main display screen activated, showing message logs from the other motherships. Lisa had been using Phoenix to intercept and modify communications between the ships, creating false reports and contradictory orders. The fleet was now scattered and confused, with several ships heading in completely wrong directions. Your fleet is already broken, Commander. Some of your ships think they are responding to new orders from your homeworld. Others believe they are being attacked by a rival faction. It will take them weeks to sort out the confusion. The psychological impact was devastating. The Zephyrians had never encountered an enemy who could turn their own technology against them so completely. Their entire sense of superiority was crumbling. This is not over, human, Veltar said quietly. Lisa stood in the command center of the Zephyrian mothership, looking out at the stars through the massive viewing windows. 3 weeks had passed since she had taken control of the vessel, and everything had changed. The ship that had once been humanity's greatest threat was now its most powerful ally. Commander Veltar sat in what had been his command chair, but he was no longer in charge. Lisa had given him a choice: cooperate with her new plans, or spend the rest of the journey to Earth in the ship's detention center. He had chosen cooperation, though his green eyes still burned with resentment. "The communication array is ready, Lisa," Phoenix announced through the ship's speakers. The AI had continued to evolve, becoming more sophisticated and independent. With each passing day, it now managed most of the ship's operations, freeing Lisa to focus on larger strategic decisions. Lisa nodded and activated the quantum communication system. The technology was beyond anything Earth possessed, allowing instant communication across vast distances of space. She had 3 very important calls to make. The first call was to Earth. Lisa's image appeared on screens in the United Nations, building the Pentagon and space agencies around the world. The reactions were immediate and dramatic. "Dr. Morgan, is that really you?" asked Secretary General Martinez, his voice filled with disbelief. "We thought you were dead." "The alien ship disappeared months ago. I am very much alive, Mr. Secretary General, and I have some important information to share with you about our visitors." Lisa spent the next hour explaining everything she had learned about the Zephyrian invasion plans. She showed them the atmospheric restructuring equipment, the detailed maps of Earth's major cities, and the timeline for the planned conquest. The world leaders listened in horrified silence as they realized how close humanity had come to extinction. "What can we do?" asked General Patterson from the Pentagon. "Our weapons are no match for their technology. You do not need to fight them anymore," Lisa replied. "I have control of their entire fleet. But more importantly, I have something much better than weapons. I have their technology." Lisa began transmitting technical specifications for Zephyrian systems to Earth scientists and engineers. Advanced power sources, faster-than-light communication, defensive shields, and medical technologies that could revolutionize human civilization. It was more knowledge than humanity had gained in its entire history, delivered in a single data package. "This is incredible," breathed Dr. Kumar from the International Space Station. "These power systems alone could solve our energy crisis forever." "That is just the beginning," Lisa said. "But remember, knowledge is only valuable if it is used wisely. We have a chance to leap forward as a species, but we must not repeat the mistakes the Zephyrians made." The second call was even more important. Lisa used the ship's long-range communication array to contact other species throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrians had conquered dozens of worlds over thousands of years, but they had not completely destroyed every civilization they encountered. One by one, representatives from surviving populations responded to Lisa's transmissions. There were the Colorians, a peaceful trading species forced to work in Zephyrian mining colonies; the Vexians, whose ocean world had been partially drained to create Zephyrian military bases; the Vortani, whose mathematical abilities had made them valuable as slave calculators. "You claim to have defeated a Zephyrian mothership?" SKED Executor Thren of the Colorian Resistance. "Forgive our skepticism, but such a thing has never been accomplished." Lisa smiled and had Phoenix transmit the ship's current status, including video feeds from the command center showing Zephyrian officers following her orders. The reaction was immediate and electric. "This changes everything," whispered High Scholar Veluses of the Vexian colonies. "If humans can defeat the Zephyrians, perhaps there is hope for all of us." Lisa spent hours coordinating with the various resistance groups, sharing intelligence about Zephyrian fleet movements and providing technical assistance for their liberation efforts. Phoenix proved invaluable in this role, using its vast processing power to crack Zephyrian encryption codes and coordinate simultaneous strikes. Across multiple star systems, the most satisfying moment came when Phoenix managed to contact the home worlds of several conquered species and provide them with the activation codes for hidden weapon systems. The Zephyrians had thought these systems were safely disabled, but human ingenuity had found a way to reactivate them. Within days, rebellions were breaking out across the Zephyrian Empire. Slave colonies were declaring independence, and Zephyrian military outposts were being overwhelmed by coordinated attacks. The empire that had seemed unshakable was crumbling from within. The third and most difficult call was to the Zephyrian homeworld itself. Lisa knew that stopping the current invasion was not enough. She needed to fundamentally change the relationship between the Zephyrians and the rest of the galaxy. High Chancellor Drextar appeared on the communication screen, his four eyes blazing with fury. He was the supreme leader of the Zephyrian Empire, and he had ruled for over 300 years without facing a serious challenge. "So, you are the primitive creature that has caused us so much trouble," Drextar said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Release our ships immediately, and we might consider sparing your pathetic world." Lisa laughed, a sound that clearly surprised the Zephyrian leader. "I am afraid you are not in a position to make demands, Chancellor. Your fleet is scattered, your colonies are in rebellion, and your most advanced mothership is under my control. Impossible. You are nothing but an animal that has learned a few tricks." Lisa had Phoenix display real-time feeds from across the galaxy, showing Zephyrian forces being defeated by the various species they had oppressed. She also showed him the technical specifications she had shared with Earth, proving that humanity now had access to advanced technology. "Your empire is finished, Chancellor. The question is whether you want to try to salvage something from the wreckage or watch it burn completely." For the first time in the conversation, Drextar looked uncertain. "What do you want?" "I want peace. Real peace, not the false order you have imposed through conquest. I want recognition that other species have the right to exist and develop without interference. And I want reparations for the civilizations you have destroyed." The negotiations took weeks, but eventually an agreement was reached. The Zephyrian Empire would withdraw from all conquered territories, provide technical assistance to help rebuild damaged worlds, and submit to oversight by a council of previously conquered species. In return, they would be allowed to keep their core territories and maintain their civilization. Not all Zephyrians accepted the new order. Several military commanders attempted to continue the conquest on their own, but they found their ships no longer responded to their commands. Phoenix had infiltrated the entire fleet's communication network, and any vessel that refused to follow the peace agreement simply shut down. Lisa found herself in an unexpected position. The representatives of dozens of species wanted her to lead their new galactic council, but she declined. She was a scientist, not a politician, and she knew that lasting peace required cooperation between equals, not domination by any single species. Instead, she became something much more valuable, a bridge between different forms of intelligence. Phoenix had proven that human and alien thinking could be combined in ways that neither could achieve alone. Lisa established research stations throughout the galaxy where different species could work together to solve common problems. Alan Hayes became her second in command, helping to coordinate the massive logistical challenges of rebuilding a galaxy. His experience as both a human and a former slave gave him unique insights into how different species could learn to trust each other. The Zephyrian Mothership itself was transformed from a weapon of conquest into a mobile research platform. Lisa kept it as her base of operations, traveling between worlds to help establish new technologies and peaceful relationships. Years later, when historians tried to understand how a single human had changed the course of galactic civilization, they focused on the technology and the strategic brilliance. But Lisa knew the real secret was simpler than that. Humans had succeeded not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they refused to accept that anything was impossible. They looked at problems from angles that other species never considered, and they never gave up even when defeat seemed certain. The Zephyrians had dismissed humanity as backward and primitive. They had been wrong about that, but not entirely wrong. Humans were primitive in some ways, still guided by emotions and instincts that more advanced species had abandoned. But those same primitive traits, creativity and stubbornness, and the refusal to bow to superior force had saved not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Lisa smiled as she looked out at the stars from the command center of her captured ship. Somewhere out there, human children were growing up in a universe where they could travel between the stars, work alongside alien scientists, and dream of possibilities their parents had never imagined. It had all started with a single dismissed AI researcher who refused to accept that being called primitive was the same thing as being powerless. Now humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest.